2 years ago, nearly to the day, I was working for my last employer in corporate land, and I was always very good at dealing with stress. However, the 8th of March 2022, I actually found my limit. And as I say, the heat got around about here, I reckon, and then I blacked out.
On this episode of the Old Business Baby podcast, I'm speaking to Trevor Churchley of Talentology.
Things happen for a reason. Yep, you get knocked down, but you know what? You get back up.
Yep.
It took a little while to get back up, but you get back up. And 2 years down the track, this has been awesome. But I always kept in the back of my mind, what if I failed? What if all of a sudden I started Talentology and everyone said, well, that sucks. What would happen? If you work hard enough at something, you can make it successful. If you believe in it, you can make it successful. And if you got the right support, you can really make it successful.
Is it safe to say that starting your own business has been the best decision you've ever made?
Yes.
Excellent.
Let me think about that for a minute. Yes.
Welcome to the Old Business Baby podcast.
Thank you.
For the audience out there, can you tell us a little bit about yourself personally and also your business, Talentology?
A lot of people in the industry, we talk about, I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. I like to say I've been in the industry for 27.
That's a long time.
Makes me feel old, but hey, it's always about the truth. I started in the IT recruitment industry back in 1997. I fell into the industry after a career in marketing. I was in the UK being the Australian backpacker. And got back to Australia and someone said to me, hey, have you thought about recruitment? Maybe recruitment would be a good job for you. And I immediately said to them, absolutely not. Let's face it, recruiters are a bunch of arseholes, so let's not do that. But 3 days later, I got the job. And what's really interesting about it is that I really loved it. I've always been an IT contract recruiter or have been involved in IT professional services, building project teams. And what I really loved about it was the ability to help people. So, obviously jobs and contracts in the IT industry or in any industry are critical to someone's life. It's a way of making money. It's a way of obviously building a life for yourself. It creates options, of course. And I think sometimes, the recruitment industry really does struggle to think about the important thing in the industry, which are the people themselves. And for me, I like to make a difference. I like to get to know people. I like to know the people who I'm placing. I've placed thousands of contractors. And for me, it's really about being able to find people the right jobs, the right opportunities, and working with IT SME leaders, whatever the case may be. So so for me, it's been a really interesting journey, and that's really led me to Talentology. I started Talentology as a side hustle in 2017. I wanted to experiment. I'd never run my own business before. And I just had this little idea of how about I provide job search coaching or career security coaching to people? Because I was always being asked for advice on resumes and LinkedIn profiles and what's the best way of getting a job. So what I decided to do was I started Talentology. The logo was actually developed by my son during his HSC. And yes, I did pay him for it.
Free child labour, but it looks good. So
well, I think it's unusual. I really do like the T and the star. It talks about talent, and everyone's a shining star. And what I was able to do was to effectively help people, really, when it comes down to it, to personally sell and market themselves. Because when you're looking at securing a job, that's what a lot of people lack. They lack the confidence to be able to really represent themselves and to get themselves to be visible and to really make the most of their job search. Most people fear job search, right? So what I was able to do is help people. So I was running workshops, helping people on a one-on-one basis. But then I ended up taking a job with another organisation, and so I let it fade away a little bit. 2 years ago, nearly to the day, I was working for my last employer in corporate land. And due to untold stress at work, which a lot of people do go through, I've been pretty good at dealing with stress through my sales career and through my career in general. And I was always very good at dealing with stress. However, the 8th of March 2022, I actually found my limit. to the point where I had a stress-related mental breakdown.
Right.
It was a really difficult thing to go through. And as I went through it, I couldn't actually, it was like an out-of-body experience. I couldn't believe I was actually going through this. And this particular day, I won't go into all the gory details, but I remember it was about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'd been in a particularly stressful situation. I'd been working like 19, 20-hour days, stressing out about work, but always trying to strive to get the job done. But this particular day, it just was too much. And I just felt this overwhelming heat rise through my body.
Right.
And believe it or not, I woke up in a park. I had a mental blackout and woke up in a park.
Can you tell us where you were before and then do you know how you ended up at the park?
Well, no, that's the thing is that I remember having a conversation with someone online. I remember being incredibly overwhelmed and having a huge amount of anxiety building, but not realizing that was the case. I knew I was stressed, but I didn't realize I was being that anxious and that overwhelmed. And as I say, the heat got around about here, I reckon, and then I blacked out.
Gone.
I woke up in a park about 600 metres down the road from my house. I had shorts and a T-shirt on. I had no keys. I had no phone. I had no idea why I was there. And I came through. I'd walked across a busy road to get there. So let's face it, that's pretty bad. I then started walking home, a bit dazed. And as I walked in through the front door, which was still open, my wife was on the phone to someone having a chat to, I think, a colleague or a boss of mine. And I then started to come to the realisation that I had a mental breakdown. And it was actually really, really confronting, like something I've never experienced before. But what's funny is that, what do they say? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yep.
Well, that's exactly what happened. So I had to take some time away. I had to, talk to counsellors and go through the process of healing, my mind. But what I then found myself doing is coming up with, well, what do I do next? I'm really at rock bottom here. What am I going to do? And I'm a pretty resilient person. So my wife and I, in fact, let's just say my wife came downstairs one day and said to me, I cannot believe I'm about to say this to you, Trevor, because she's quite risk adverse and she'll admit that. And she said, Trevor, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think you should start your own business. And that was a turning point. Well, a couple of turning points strung, closely following each other, but it was a turning point for Talentology to be reborn as my business, my vocation. And I'll tell you what, it was feelings of jubilation and absolutely oh shit moments going on in the one situation, because a lot of people in my career told me, you should start your own business. Mm-hmm. Why don't you do it? And I've never done it. Always having the security of your base salary, your super, your benefits, having company expenses, not having to worry too much about that trip to Melbourne to go and meet people for whatever. Mm-hmm. I've always had that security. But now all of a sudden, I knew I couldn't go back to corporate land. After what I'd experienced, I couldn't go back. It was kind of like, a bit of PTSD.
So before you get into more detail, that mental breakdown, that was because of work. That was because of the corporate job. You're getting overworked. Right. Okay. And
it was pretty much the job. Now, sales is a stressful industry, no doubt about it. But there were things that were going on inside the business that I was effectively leading, and what it led to was basically my body telling me no, that's it, that's the limit.
Wow. So you had a mental breakdown, and that really was that event that you needed to happen to say, you know what, it's time to do your own thing. I mean, obviously you've recovered now, and you're a few years into Talentology, so obviously it is successful. But okay, what a story. So
I know it's look, and even just talking about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle to talk about their failures and things like this. Mental breakdowns, anxiety. I like to talk about it because I like to think it may help someone, because a lot of us at work feel stress and anxiety. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. By nature as humans, we always soldier on, tough it up, get by, it'll pass, just get over it type of things that we say.
Especially for a man as well, right? You're supposed to have that. You're supposed to be strong and just get over it and move on.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's just about being a man. I think it's about being human. I think everyone experiences stress and anxiety, no matter what who you are or what gender. I think it's a really common thing. There's a lot of stress in life. There are businesses, jobs are really stressful. But I think, for me, it was a really interesting situation for me to go through. And if I share that and can help someone else who may be experiencing similar things to me, then that's great. If I can help one person through telling my story, great. But I think the moral to the story is that sometimes, things happen for a reason. And in my situation, it did. It happened for a reason. It forced me into a situation where I decided I couldn't go back to corporate. I had to find something else. And with the support of my family, my wife, who was just awesome through this process, right? Without her, I wouldn't have been able to do this. 2 years down the track now with Talentology, we're doing pretty damn good. We're making a difference hopefully in the world, in my industry. And we've developed a pretty good business.
Trev, that's good to hear. Inspiring story. But I guess, you spoke about mental health. I think that's a big thing that, a lot of people don't like to speak about. When you had that episode, could you just tell us what kind of recovery methods or what you went through to get over that sort of period? Yeah,
it's a really good question. Hey, so from the moment I walked back into the house after having this blackout, I basically, and just feeling emotional talking about it now, I just broke down with my wife there. But the first thing that ran through my mind was I need help. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know what help I need, but I need help. I need to talk to somebody. So what was great is the employee assistance program that my employer had. Okay. And most employers have this. And I made a phone call to them. And when I did, they said, is this a life and death situation? I said, it may be. I don't know. And I'm just being honest, right? Yeah. Within 15 minutes, I had a phone call from a counsellor. Okay. And that was awesome. And because these people are trained to be able to help you, right? They asked me a series of questions. They asked me how I felt. They asked me what had happened. And I was really open and honest. It was really raw. And I had quite a number of sessions with the EAP counsellor remotely. And my employer actually bought a few more sessions for me, which was great. But that wasn't where it stopped. At the time, I had an executive coach. And this executive coach, I ended up speaking with him about my situation. And he recommended me to go and see a psychologist who specialises in workplace stress. Now, at the time, and we're talking, 2022, and there is still a high demand for psychologists and psychiatrists to dealing with mental health. So I was really lucky because my executive coach pulled a couple of strings to get me into an amazing psychologist. And we had a number of sessions as well. And that was really helpful because I was able to then reflect on what had happened, what was the cause, and how can I not necessarily just mend now, but also prevent it to happen in the future? Because effectively I'd been through a trigger point, and we had to really work through that. So that was great. What also helped me was just talking about it, talking to my wife, talking to my friends. And a lot of people are going to say, again, they're very conscious of not showing that vulnerability and, what had happened. But I felt it was really helpful for me to talk about it. The more I talked about it, the more it made sense and the more I could deal with it properly.
That's awesome, inspiring. I think even for me, and I'm sure other people out there, it's just hard for us to talk about our feelings and what we're going through, right? We just hide it. And it might get to a point where it just it builds up and we kind of explode or have that kind of episode. But yeah, thanks for sharing, Trev. That's very touching. Far out. I didn't know that myself. So this is the first hearing about it, even though I've known you for a few years now.
Yeah, I do talk about it quite a bit with people because what I tend to find is that when I talk about it, then someone will say to me, I've actually been through something like that. They'll open up. Okay. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a show of vulnerability to open it up in someone else.
Yep.
And then we can talk about it. And look, I've spoken to quite a number of people over the last 2 years about the subject and to help people, just to talk, and I offer my that to everyone that I know. If you want to talk about something that's bothering you, ring me out. Let's talk.
Let's segue a bit and let's talk about the contrasting difference between you working at your old job or being an employee to now you being a business owner and at Talentology. Can you tell us what are the stark differences between the two? And
oh my God,
elaborate on that, please.
Where do I start? Yeah. The first thing is, and it might sound like a cliche, but oh my God, it's so good to be your own boss. Now, it's not for everyone, right? So my business is a small business and I purposefully designed it like that because I needed to be by myself for a while after what I'd been through. I'm now thinking of scaling up, which is great. We've got to that point now after 2 years, which is awesome. But being your own boss is magnificent if you can keep yourself accountable. Okay, now, someone that I know said to me just as I was starting to develop Talentology to launch on the 1st of July 2022, I spoke to quite a few people about running their own businesses. And one person, I hope you doesn't mind me mentioning him, a guy called Andrew Blades, an awesome ex-colleague of mine, said to me, Trevor, what you need to be careful of is accountability. He said, there are so many people who start their own businesses who then at lunchtime decide to go and watch Netflix for the rest of the day or play PlayStation or go out to lunch with your mates. And that's the reason why they fail. Now, that's kind of like common sense, right? But it was really interesting for him to tell me that. Now, I'm not, I don't do that type of stuff, right? I'm pretty accountable. I'm pretty disciplined in my approach. But those type of tips are really cool, right? Because you are the boss, but you're everything. So that was one thing. You got to be accountable. The second thing for me about being my own boss is avoiding meetings for meeting's sake. You know, the amount of meetings for meeting's sake that you have to attend when you work for a large business is insane.
Yes.
You know,
it's a waste of time.
Waste of time. All right. You know, I'm hopefully I won't get into trouble with too many people by saying that. But oh my God, I don't miss that.
Yeah.
In sales, you know what I don't miss? I don't miss the Monday morning sales meeting or the Tuesday morning meeting or the Wednesday, Thursday or Friday meeting and all of that
and the
stuff.
Meetings in between.
Well, the sales meetings in particular, and I, you know, maybe it's a bit controversial for me to say this, but most of the time it's, you know, you're either beating your chest because you're amazing or cowering in the corner because you haven't been. And it's not a very nice process to go through. I don't miss that. I just think it's a dreadful thing to go through. And the other thing, again, silly that I should mention it, but I was talking to an ex-colleague of mine just recently who said to me, oh my God, we're going through budget cycles at the moment for next financial year. And I said, but mate, we've only just got to the half year. He says, yeah, it takes 6 months where he will have a number in his head and the corporate has a number in their head and his number means nothing because it'll be the corporate that gets their number plus 10%. So why don't we just cut to the chase and just give you the number? I don't miss that. Oh my God, I don't miss that. But I still get up really early in the morning and I still work long days. But the beautiful thing about this is that I love what I do. And I've been able to craft a business to do stuff that I love to do. And there's nothing better than that.
And that you've had experience in as well. So this is, you know, obviously you've leveraged, you've built a business leveraging off the skills that you've, you know, crafted over the last 27 years. And now you've got all this free time where you're not wasted in meetings, but rather being productive with the time. So you're actually able to build something meaningful and something actually that will be successful, right?
And I think one of the things you learn when you run your own business is that time is precious, all right? You can't waste it, okay? You've really got to be purposeful about your time. I'm not suggesting that every minute of your time must be paid for by someone because that's not what I do. I give a lot of my time away for free to help people, to talk to people, to understand them, and that's totally cool. But you've really got to be, you know, really conscious that time is precious and you don't want to waste it. Whereas when you're an employee, you go out for a coffee, you have a bit of a chat to someone, you know, it's okay to go to Melbourne this week, you muck around, blah, 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 blah.
It's a lot of fluff.
It's a lot of fluff.
Yep.
Right? But I think what's really interesting is when it's your time and when it's your money, oh my God,
that's
you're on
fluff.
top of it.
Yeah.
You get rid of the fluff. And I think that in itself is one of the big lessons that I've learned by transitioning from corporate land into small business land, right?
Speak to me a little bit about your first year though. How was that? Did you find that was challenging? Did you find that, you know, maybe the first year was quite easy transitioning? You know, what was your experience in the first year of business?
Yeah, good question. Hey, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I was so nervous before I started. Like, yes, my wife had said, we'd agreed, yeah, let's do this. And even then I was like, oh my God, is this going to work? You know, and there was a lot of misgivings. When I got there on day one, it was like drinking through a fire hose. I didn't know which way to look. There were so many things I could be doing and not doing. Yes. And I had to really tap myself on the shoulder and go, hey, slow down, man. Slow down. This is only day one. And I started to calm, right? Because there was a combination of excitement and anxiety all mixed into one. But what I found was that I just had to keep doing what I was doing previously. Because, you know, with all due respect, I've been pretty good at what I do over the last 27 years. So let's not change things. All right. So I was transitioning from a sales and marketing role with a corporate running a brand which we were able to market IT subject matter expert businesses to large corporates. And what I then did with Talentology was exactly the same. Now, without the massive marketing budgets and premises and brand and granted, but as a small business, you don't need to do as much as big business, right? Because you keep your costs low and therefore you don't need to do as much. Now, I'm my own worst enemy. Of course, I love to do a lot. That's great, fine. Keep it under control. But I just had to be calm. So that was kind of the first month. And I got out there and I started promoting my business. I started talking about it.
Yep.
You know, it was a bit clunky. You know, you've got to get your elevator pitch right. You've got to get your marketing right. You've got to get the website right. I probably changed the website about 1,001 times in the last 2 years, and that's okay. It's good, right? But I found my groove. I'm delighted to say I sent my first invoice in month number 1. Tick. Ooh. That was a big relief. What was also a good relief was what I was putting out there was being positively responded to. But I knew I had to work hard, right? And I'm not afraid of hard work. In fact, when you work hard in something you love, it's not work.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a pleasure. So then I suppose I just kept with my plan. I had a plan for what I wanted to achieve in year 1, and I got there. But I was working on a month-by-month proposition. I was looking at partners, opportunities, so on and so forth. And I was well ahead of where I thought I would be at the end of year 1. Mm-hmm. And I'm delighted to say I'm in the same position for year 2. And over that time, I've built, I think, what is now quite a respected small business. We're growing. We've got a following that's growing. Mm-hmm. And I'm delighted at that. It's great to be able to look back at this little thing that I created, and now it's starting to be successful at adding value to people's lives.
No, that's good. I think one thing that resonates with me there during your first year of business is the fact that you actually planned, right? You planned ahead and then you went and executed. So, besides that, what would you say to the audience out there thinking about starting their own business? What would be your tip or tips to them when starting out?
Oh, good question. I think the first thing is you've really got to be clear on what you're about to do. You've really got to be clear. You've really got to understand what your business is about to do. And it might sound like real fluff, but what's your vision and what's your mission? What are you here to do? What do you see the future to be? What problems are you looking at solving for your customers? Because ultimately you've got to be clear on those problems, because that really then drives your value proposition, your USPs. What makes you different? In a sea of vanilla, what makes you stand out? And you've really got to have that point. And I think really a lot of that sort of planning comes into play because, that's your guiding light. That is the thing you're always going to be guided by. The other thing I'd also suggest is that you need to have a good support group to support your business, because you're gonna have a superpower. My superpower is sales and marketing, mm-hmm. right? I'm not good at numbers and finance, Phil, as you know, because you are my virtual CFO. Without you and without Solve and without this, you guys supporting me, my accounts would be probably most likely absolutely terrible. And the tax department would probably be taking me apart right now. So I'm grateful to that. But you've got to have a support group that you gel with, that are your culture, that work with you in partnership and collaboration, mm-hmm. to be able to make sure that they are supporting and augmenting your superpowers. Yeah. Okay, because you can't do it all yourself. And if you can, good on you, because that's not me, right? But you've got to make a decision on what you're going to spend time on and what you're not going to spend time on and outsource. Really what it comes down to. You've got to be efficient. Like I'm now getting to the next level of how do I scale this thing up? Mm-hmm. So I'm now bringing other people in to ask their advice on what I should do. And we've got some plans in the making, which is great. Yep. But again, a lot of people talk about strengths and weaknesses or superpowers and weaknesses. You can spend your entire life working on your weaknesses and they'll never become a strength. So why not outsource the weaknesses and focus on your superpowers and make them even better?
Yeah, I think you make a really good point in terms of getting help. So, when you get into business, it can be lonely. And when you say help, I'd say there's probably 2 types of help. It's actually help within the business to help it grow, but also help in terms of a mentor type of help or like a support network where you can just, speak to someone and get their advice, share their wins, losses, just to make sure that, you are learning from their mistakes. The best way to scale or to get somewhere quick is to learn from someone who's done it before, because then you can cut out all the errors, right?
Yeah, and look, I'm lucky because I suppose my business is actually what I've done with Talentology. I've built an IT SME community. So IT SME leaders, technology leaders who are not great at sales and marketing, right? I don't think they'll mind me telling them that, mentioning that to them, because they'll all be shaking their head going, I don't want to do that. But they're technology experts, right? Yep. So what I've just described to you, I have actually developed as a community, where I'm the sales and marketing leader, they're the technology experts, and we work together in collaboration to get stuff done. All right. You know, one of my ITSME partners is Nathan Richow from NatCams, who of course is your customer as well.
Yep.
And Nathan's a prime example of this. Nathan is a magnificent program manager, very well respected, not great at sales and marketing. Now, it's not that he can't be great at sales and marketing, right? Because everyone's capable of anything. But does he want to spend all of his time mastering the skill of sales and marketing? Or does he want to continue to be an amazing program manager running project governance? I can tell you that's what he wants to do. So working with me, I can provide that support to him. But where we work in partnership is I do bounce ideas off him. He does bounce ideas off me. Our community does the same. I've then got an external group of people, of ex-colleagues and industry experts who I do the same with. Vice versa. They bounce off me, I bounce off them. So whilst I'm a small business operator and I am by myself, I'm never lonely.
Yeah, good.
But you've got to make the effort to not be lonely. All right. It's easy to be lonely if you don't reach out to people. You've got to remind yourself, don't be an island, right? You've got to reach out. There are many, many people out there that will absolutely provide their support and guidance to you, but you've got to ask for it and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, the lesson here is not to be afraid to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Because if you're afraid to ask for help,
no one's going to help.
No one knows, right? Yeah. And this happens so often. You know, people become too solitary.
Yes.
You know, and I think you've got to sometimes have that little chat to the voice inside your head to say, no, I'm not bothering someone. No, it's going to be okay if I ask for help, because people that really care for you, when you ask for help, they will help you.
Yep.
All right. They won't judge you. They will help you. And if the person that you do call does judge you or reject you, well, maybe you should, maybe think twice about them being your...
asking someone else. Yeah. Ask someone else. Don't ask them.
Totally. Yeah.
No, great point there, Trev. You mentioned that you were looking, or you're in the process now of scaling your business. So for the audience out there who are already running a business, and they might be in the same situation like yourself where, you're kind of wearing all the hats within the business. Can you share a bit about what you're doing now to scale? What things are you putting in place, and some tips around that for the audience out there?
Yeah, look, scaling is interesting, right? Because I suppose everyone thinks of scaling as hiring people. Okay, and that's great. You can always hire someone else, but you've also got to remember that by hiring someone, it's going to take a chunk of your time. So the first way I've looked at scaling is to use technology, all right? So to use tools, to use, let's face it, generative AI is so much of a buzz right now. And whilst there's a lot of snake oil out there on Gen AI, there's some great tools. And I'll give you some prime examples, right? So prior to Gen AI, I would sit and write notes, right? Like everyone in the entire universe, right? I'd maybe type my notes on screen, or I'd write on a notepad, and I wouldn't focus on the conversation because I'm trying to do two things at once. It's actually really tough to do, right?
Yes.
Especially when you then have to read your notes back and you've written worse than a doctor.
Refine it and then think about what was spoken. Did I miss any points? It does take a lot of time.
Oh my God, doesn't it? Yep. And I can't read my own writing, so that's even worse, right? So fail. But I found some Gen AI tools that I can link into my meetings, right, that record everything. Perfect. Because now I can reflect back on that information. I can store that in my CRM, and I don't need to worry about that anymore. Right? I now have a searchable database of client notes. Perfect. I can generate, using ChatGPT, for example, I can generate notes and proposals and a whole bunch of different things. So as a small business owner, where that may have taken me an awful long time, now it takes me a fraction of the time. Content generation. Okay, so being a sales and marketing person, you need to be visible. All right, so I post on LinkedIn every day. I'm talking about things that are brand related to Talentology and myself. I share personal stories like you do as well. Now, to do that, back before the days of Gen AI, of course, we had to do a lot of writing. Now, I don't necessarily just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write me something, and I post it straight away with all the little emojis. Yep. What I do is I will inform it. I will prompt it. I will create a piece of content that is actually uniquely mine, and then I will post. But then I also use things like Canva to be able to create my graphics. Luckily, I'm a bit of a graphic designer.
Yep.
There are things that you can do using technology that will help you save time and therefore allow you to have other time to do more important tasks. In my world, that's selling and prospecting. But that only gets you so far. Once you get to a level where there's no more technology can help you, because let's face it, you got 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week to spend, then you need to start looking at more stuff. So I'm now in the process of looking at hiring hiring staff, but there'll be, I want to bring on junior people to be able to help me, to be able to drive the business, but also to help the next generation of employees and, and marketing and sales professionals to learn a trade. And if I can help someone, as I was helped way back in a different millennium, that's a good thing, right? I'm hopefully then passing that on.
Correct.
Hopefully my son and sons and daughters may want to come through and
they can work for you,
take over the family empire at one point, but we'll see.
No, that's good. So you're doing all these things, and I guess if you have these things in place, that's just going to give you more time back and allow you to then travel with the wife and not think about, or not actually working on the go, right? And actually being physically and mentally present with her.
Well, that's the plan, because my wife and I are celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary next year,
Congrats.
2025. Thank you very much. And she's also turning, so big birthday. She's turning.
That's very young.
So for the record, she's turning 38 again. Megan will kill me if I was to tell her real age.
Yeah.
So we're planning a trip to Europe. Okay. Now, this is a really interesting thing, because I started thinking about, okay, so how am I going to run this business while I'm in Europe? It's not going to be easy. Different time zones, lots of work, so on and so forth. So I've now put in a plan to be able to make that happen. All right. Because I really need that level of freedom to be able to make sure that I can enjoy this holiday and not be literally sightseeing every day, working every night, because I know what will happen. I will end up very tired. So the plan is in place for that to happen. We're leaving in March 2025. So I've literally got 12 months. The plan is in place. Well, the plan is being progressed.
Yes, excellent. That's good. That's and once again, like very Trev-like, you're planning ahead, which is good.
You got to plan ahead.
That's a big tip.
Oh, you got to plan ahead. You're absolutely right.
Now, look, it's been a great conversation so far. I guess as we try and wrap up this conversation, what would you say your goals are for the business now, long term? What do you see yourself getting? Like, what do you see? Where do you see Talentology, and what do you see yourself getting out of it?
Good question. I think right now it's about further establishing our service offerings. All right. So Talentology is all about supporting IT SMEs to be able to sell and market to compete against the big guys. All right. And if you were to look at my feeds, I'm quite critical of large IT services businesses and the big four. I like to think that IT SMEs, being Australia's largest collective employer, deserve more of a chance. Now, to do that, they need a voice. To do that, they need support. And that's what I'm here for. So I wave the IT SME flag. Yeah. And that also extends to B2B IT contractors who also need help in that area. Okay, so between my sales and marketing consulting and sales manager as a service offering to IT SMEs and my career security coaching services to IT contractors, we're able to make that happen. So the plan is to build that out. The plan is to be able to take on more customers, to be able to provide that independent voice and that independent representation to make sure that this cohort gets the best service, the best representation, where right now they don't. Moving forward, it's to grow that practice and it's to scale that out, to be able to take on more. Now, I'm not about quantity, I'm about quality, but it's to make sure that we can build a volume of work and a project pipeline for our community that really does take a few dollars off the big guys. They're not going to miss it. They'll be totally fine. But it builds a sustainable IT SME industry in Australia. Now, I know that might sound very grand and a massive plan, but I'm really passionate about that because I really do think that IT SMEs need to go. What the future holds? Well, beyond March 2025, when we'll be going to Europe, I'm putting that one on hold for right now because, you know what, let's plan a year ahead. Let's not plan 5 years ahead. I don't have a plan to develop $1 billion business. I know that might sound outrageous to say in this day and age.
No, it's not. There's nothing wrong with $1 million.
But I'm not the type of person that goes out there and says, I'll build a platform, sell it for $1 billion and go and do whatever's. I'm realistic. I want to build a business that I enjoy working in. All right. I see myself, working for another, 10 years or so, but it's not work, it's enjoyment. I really love what I do and I want to be able to build a business that I love to work in. So that's kind of it, really. I know it's very simple, but it means a lot.
But it makes you happy.
It makes me happy.
Right.
It makes me delighted.
I think your grand plan itself, it sounds like, you're obviously doing something for a bigger purpose for the wider community. You're the man of the people, but for you personally, for you to be able to actually achieve that will make you happy, because it then allows you to then work in this sort of environment, this field, for a long time. Yeah. And as you say, if you enjoy what you do, it's not work.
And I want to change the industry a little bit. I want the industry, like the IT and IT recruitment and IT professional services industries, they're quite stale. They haven't changed for an awful long time. I personally think that service quality to the people, meaning the candidates, the IT SME leaders, the contractors, is pretty poor.
Yeah.
I want to change it. If we change it in a small way, just for someone to have a little sideways look, great. Okay. But if we can benefit even a small number of people in the industry, that would make me very happy. It does make me very happy because helping people is what I do.
Trevor, I love everything you've said. I guess, is it safe to say that starting your own business has been the best decision you've ever made?
Yes.
Excellent.
Let me think about that for a minute. Yes.
Not marrying your wife?
As I say, you look back 2 years ago, from a mental breakdown to sitting here today, things happen for a reason. Yep, you get knocked down, but you know what? You get back up.
Yep.
It took a little while to get back up, but you get back up. And 2 years down the track, this has been awesome. But I always kept in the back of my mind, what if I failed? What if all of a sudden I started Talentology and everyone said, well, that sucks. What would happen? Well, you know what? I'd just go back.
Worst case scenario.
I'd have to go back to corporate. All right.
Yeah.
But I would do it differently. Okay. I wouldn't accept defeat. But the reality is that if you work hard enough at something, you can make it successful. If you believe in it, you can make it successful. And if you got the right support, you can really make it successful. So, for me, as someone who was never going to start his own business because I love the little cushy base salary, to here, well, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Now you still got that cushy salary, but you're your own boss. You're working on your own terms, and you're not having. You've got that freedom.
Yeah, I've got the freedom, and the freedom means a lot. Oh my God.
That's awesome, Trev. Thank you for coming on this episode today. I appreciate your time, and let's catch up again soon. So if you're about to begin your business journey, or you're currently going through your business journey, tune into future episodes so that you can learn more and find a supportive community. Otherwise, follow me on LinkedIn for more.